Ronald Reagan once said, "Simple morality dictates that unless and until someone can prove the unborn human is not alive, we must give it the benefit of the doubt and assume it is, and thus it should be entitled to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." Abortion, is it right or is it wrong? I stand here today because I was fortunate enough to have a mother who chose life. A mother has a right to choose if her child lives or dies, but what about the baby? Does the baby get a choice? Since 1973, there have been approximately 53,310,843 abortions in the United States of America. Over 53 million lives were terminated because they were unwanted. Abortion is perhaps the most controversial subject among the American people. Disputes concerning abortion began in the 1820s. Abortion had been made illegal, with only few exceptions, by 1965. Those exceptions were only if the baby was deformed or if the birth of the baby would harm the mother's life. In 1973, Roe v. Wade changed everything. In 1973, abortions were legalized. The Supreme Court recognized that it is only the mother's choice whether she wants to become a parent. There were approximately 1,212,400 abortions in 2008, and every single one of those mothers had a choice. 1,212,400 innocent babies were murdered because of that choice. As human beings, we are given the choice, but who are we to take life and death into our own hands? Most pro-choice advocates argue that a baby is not a human being with human rights until it is born. But what is the difference between a baby who was born 3 months prematurely and one who was born at full term? They both received a chance to grow and live their lives with their human rights. But what if one was violently ripped out of the womb? Is it not still a human being with human rights? Sure, it cannot stand alone without the strength of its mother, but nonetheless, it is a weak, vulnerable human being that needs the love and support of its mother. As Americans, is it not our civil duty to help and protect the weak and vulnerable? But as a mother, is it not your responsibility to love and cherish your weak and helpless child? An unborn child is the weakest human being out there, and in our society today, the womb is the most harmful place a child can be. Should it not be the opposite? The womb should be the safest place for an unborn child because it is in the love and protection of its mother. But in this generation, abortion has sadly become a form of birth control for many women. Abortion is considered an easy way out. Abortion clinics make it seem easy and self-satisfying, but they fail to mention not only the health risks, but also the emotional risks. Carol Everett once said, "The product abortion is skillfully marketed and sold to women at a crisis time in their life. She buys the product, finds it defective, and then wants to return it for a refund. But then it's too late." Most women, after a few days, will come to the realization that they've taken a life, but not just any life, their own child's life. Many will be diagnosed with depression or PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Abortion should never be considered a form of contraceptive. Most never think of the abortion survivors and how traumatizing their experience was, knowing that they have been hated ever since conception and that all their mother ever wanted was their death. Gianna Jensen survived a saline abortion, which is where they inject caustic saline solution into the amniotic fluid. The baby is scalded from the inside out and then delivered dead. But what if one was to miraculously survive? Then the abortionist would then suffocate, strangle, and toss the dead baby into the garbage. But to everyone's dismay, Gianna was born alive. And by the grace of God, the abortionist had not yet arrived at the clinic and could not continue with his plan for her life, which was death. Another survivor, Sarah Smith. Her mother chose to have an abortion. Shortly after, she found out she was still pregnant. She learned later she was pregnant with twins. Guilt-ridden for what she had done, she chose to keep Sarah. Sarah then suffered from dislocated hips, many deformalities, and many, many surgeries. But Sarah used her experience to help other young mothers choose life. Abortion rates have dropped by nearly 25% since the 1990s. But the sad thing is, abortions are still happening today. Thousands of lives are being taken because of that mother's rights. But there's so many options, adoption being the biggest one. Just after my grandmother turned 16, she was horribly raped by her best friend's brother. A few weeks later, she learned she was pregnant with a little baby girl. Many tried to persuade her to abortion, but being unsaved, even she knew the difference between life and death. My grandmother wanted the absolute best for her little baby girl, but she knew she could not do it being a teenage mother. But she did know of another way. She found a family who could love, protect, and provide for her little baby girl. My grandmother, she chose life. Abortion has sadly become the silent holocaust of this generation. It is one more heart that can never feel love. It is one more life that has been silenced. But we still have a voice. We cannot be silenced. We were given the chance to speak out for those who cannot. We will be their voice.